Hey guys, in this video we are going to be teaching you guys JavaScript in less than 1 hour. I'm going to go over all of the basics and teach you everything that you need to know to be productive as a developer with JavaScript. If you are a beginner, why should you care about JavaScript? Very simple. There's over 49,000 jobs in the United States right now, today, as we speak. 49,000 jobs, okay? And most jobs are starting $75,000 and up. Okay, if you live in San Francisco, you can get up to $160,000 with this skill. So I don't know what you're waiting on. Okay, this is literally a life-changing opportunity. So take advantage, learn with me, and let's get started. All right, guys. So now what we want to do is set up our development environment, and all that really means is just set up a place where we're going to start writing our code, and we're going to be running it from there. Okay. Now I've created this page for you guys. This is a snippet of the project that we are going to be creating. It's something simple, but this is going to help you understand JavaScript easily. All right, so let's get started. The first thing that you need is a text editor. All right, and I recommend you guys use Visual Studio Code, and then from there make sure you are using your browser. And again, I do recommend use Google Chrome. All right, very simple. Once you install these two programs, and by the way, I'm going to put them on the description so you guys can have all of the links there. And once everything is installed, I want you guys to go to your desktop, okay, and create a new folder. I'm going to create this new folder called JavaScript Basics. From there, double clicked, and there you go. We have our folder ready. Now, the next thing that I want you guys to do is open up your Visual Studio Code, open up a new window. Once it's open, this is how Visual Studio Code should look. It might have a different color than this, but it's pretty much the same thing. So open up that folder, JavaScript Basics, go inside of JavaScript Basics, click on Open. All right. Once you do that, then the next thing that I want you guys to do is create a new file. And this file is going to be called index.html. Now, once you get this index.html, I want you guys to go to the link of the JS fiddle that I have here for you guys. All right. It's going to be in the description just in case you guys don't see the letters that's here. So just click on that link. So once you get here, just copy the HTML that we have here. All right. I don't want you guys to really spend too much time on the HTML. We're going to save this. And then from there, I want you guys to take all of the code that's in here, do Command A or Control A on Windows. Then once you do that, I want you guys to just copy this, or do Command C or Command or Control C on Windows. All right. And then now the next thing that you guys want to do is you want to create a file called styles.css. Okay. We're going to create this thing called styles.css, paste in the code that we just copied from here from the CSS, and I want you guys to go to this index.html and change this to be styles.css. Okay, save that, and then save the file that's here. And the way how you save is by doing Command S or Control S on Windows. All right, you can also come up here and just do Command S or Control S, and you'll see the button right here which allows you to save it. All right, so once you do that, the next thing that you want to do is you want to go to your browser, go to Google Chrome, click on File, Open File, and then look for JavaScript Basics on your desktop. Click here, click on index.html, and there you go. All right, if you're able to see this page, you're good to go. That means you have everything set up exactly how you're supposed to. Now, the next thing that we want to do is we want to start working with JavaScript. All right. Now, like I said, JavaScript is everywhere, and Google Chrome allows us to use a couple of tools that comes with it, which allows us to just use JavaScript directly on our browser. So we can come here and do a right click and click on Inspect. And then from there, we click on Console. And from here, we can start using JavaScript. Now, to test that everything is working, I want you guys to do some very simple math. We're going to do 2 plus 2 and press enter. And as you can see, it returns back the number 4. If we do 5, let's say times 5, and press enter, it's going to return back the number 25. So as you guys can see, we're using JavaScript. Now, we can write JavaScript in two ways. We can write JavaScript in its own file, which it could be something like this, like app.js, okay? Or we can write JavaScript directly inside of our index.html. And for now, that's what we're going to do. So we're going to come here and we're going to say on our index.html, right above the closing tag of the body tag, we're going to come here and we're going to put in a new tab called script. Okay, just like that. And then now we're going to have an opening tag and a closing tag. Now inside of this tag, we can write our JavaScript. So for us, we can come here and do something very simple like console log and say, hello world, what's good? Okay, save that. Do Command S. Every time that I say save, just do Command S or Control S on your keyboard, and that will save your file. Once we save our file, we can actually refresh the page, and then there you go. We will get whatever we are actually returning back through the console log. We will see it here on our browser's console. Okay, it says, hello world, what's good? So as you guys can see, this is the first time you're writing JavaScript, guys. So let's just move on to the basics. All right, the first thing that I want you guys to learn is variables. So variables, think of it as a box. Think of it as a way to keep something in memory and you give it a name, right? That's the simplest way for you to understand what a variable is. Now, to declare a variable, all you have to do is say var and then the name of the variable. Once again, remember what I told you guys. A variable is like a box and you giving a name to that box, and then inside of that box, you're putting something. So for now, we're going to say var name. And I want you guys to put your name here. I'm going to put in my name, which is Joe. And then I'm going to delete this. Right? And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to say var name. And then I'm going to say console log the name. All right. So now when I save this and I refresh this here, as you can see, it says Joe. All right. So remember, once again, this is how we declare a variable. We say var, then the name of the actual variable, and then what we want that variable to equal to, or what we want to assign it to. All right. Now the same thing, I could come here and say username, right? So whatever you want to name this, you can name it. And then once again, we come here and say console log the username, and there you go. It says Joe. All right. It should say your name. All right. Now, the next thing that we have here is different primitive types and reference types. Now, I'm going to teach you guys this like this so it can make a little bit more sense. So right now, we wanted to put in the name of Joe to be inside of this variable of username. So this right here is a string. Now, we can come here and say var number equals to 23, right? So that's the number, right? And from there, we can also have var state. We can say this is a null. Now we can also say var, let's say city, and say this is undefined. And then we can also say var logged in, and we can say false. So what we have here is we have a string, we have a number, which is an integer, we have a state, which is equal to null, we have city, which is equal to undefined, and we have logged in, which is a Boolean, either true or false. All right. Now, what I want you guys to know is, think of null as a way to give a value to a variable and say this is empty. This is nothing here, right? Now, if you want to say, hey, this does not have an assigned value, then you will use undefined. All right. That's the simplest way for you guys to understand null, and undefined. All right, so this right here are the primitive types of JavaScript. Then from there we have reference types. Okay, so let's say for example var users equals to an array, and then in here we have Joe, Michael, and of course Billy. All right, then from there we have, let's say something like this, var car equals to, and then we have an object. As you guys can see, this is curly brackets, and in here we have different properties for this car. So we could say wheels, let's say 4, let's say windows, let's say 6, let's say maker, let's say I don't know, BMW, and let's say model, let's say X6. Okay, so there you go. Now the final reference type is a function. So we're gonna say var and say print name, okay, equals to, and we declare a function by using the keyword of function. And then in here we're going to say like this, let's say console log, and we're going to print it in the username. Okay, so what exactly is a function? When you see a function, think of a code block, something that's going to be reusable, something that you can use at all times. Now we can go ahead and print username, right, by doing console log and then put in the username. But what if we wanted to actually print this 3 times? All right, we can actually come here and copy this and paste this here 3 times, and then from there we just have to actually use it 1 time, use the function 1 time, and it will actually print all 3 of the usernames just right there back to back. So I could come here and say print name, and then now I'm going to trigger the function, which is this one. So with this, by passing in the name of the function and then passing in this parentheses right next to each other, what that does is it triggers this code block that's here. Okay, and then now I can actually come here, and when I refresh this, it's gonna print out Joe, Joe, Joe. All right, now there's also things called arguments, right? So right here we can pass in the argument of the actual name. So let's say I could say something like this, name this to be A, B, and C. Okay, and then now instead of actually printing out just the username, now I could come here and say the first one prints name A, the second one prints name B, so third one prints name C. And then now inside of here where we actually trigger the function, we could come here and say Joe, James, Jania. All right, save that. So when this function actually triggers, it's going to print all 3 of them. All right, Joe, James, Jania. And as you can see, this is reusable. I can reuse this 1,000,000 times, and I don't have to write the same code over and over again. I could just use the same function and change this to Billy, let's say Brandon, and Bill. Okay, come back here, refresh, and as you can see, it says Joe, James, Jania, Billy, Brandon, and Bill. So right now I just showed you guys primitive types and reference types, which are the string, number, null, undefined, booleans, okay, arrays, objects, and functions. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete all of this. You guys can always come back to the beginning of the video if you guys are a little bit lost or forgot something. Now what we want to learn about is conditionals. So let's say you own a bar and you want to write a program that actually checks the customer's ID, and you want to make sure that their age is over 21, right? It's either 21 or older. If they're younger than 21, you don't want to let them in to your bar, because then you're going to get a summons, you're going to get a ticket, because legally here in the United States, you got to be 21 years old to be able to drink in a bar. So let's write that program. Very simple. Okay, so we're going to say var customer age, okay, equals to 21. And we're going to come here and say if customer age is greater than or equal to 21, then what we want to do is we want to say console log welcome to the bar. We got happy hour till 4 a.m. Okay. I don't know what bar they got happy hour till 4 a.m. but let's say they have a happy hour till 4 a.m. All right, so you can drink. Now, else if the person is younger than 21, right, or they don't fit into the equation that's in here, right, where we say, hey, this person has to be equal to 21 or older, right? If they don't fit into that mold, then what we're going to do is we're going to run this else statement here. Okay, this else block. All right, so now we're going to say console log sorry youngin, you can't get in, try in a few years. Okay, so we're going to save this, and then now we're going to come here and we're going to refresh this. Okay, so as you can see, it says, welcome to the bar. We got happy hour till 4 a.m. All right. Now, if the person was, I don't know, 15 years old, you know, people try to scheme it, try to get into the bar. Okay. Refresh. It's like, hey, sorry, youngin, you can't get in. Try in a few years. All right. So because they are too young, right, they can't get in. All right. So this right here is conditionals, and there's other things that you can go and use, like switch statements, else if, like things like that. You can definitely use it, but right now, just for you guys to understand the basics of JavaScript, this right here is good enough. All right, now remember what I told you guys. We can write JavaScript right here on our index.html file, or we can actually write JavaScript inside of our app.js. So I can actually just take this whole code, right, cut this out. Okay, you could just, if you guys don't know how to cut, just do Command X or just right click it, put on cut, and then come to your app.js and paste it here. Okay, and we save this, Command S, index.html, we save this. Now, as you guys can see, if we refresh this, is no longer working. Our program is not running, and the reason that is because we have to tell the browser, hey, we are using JavaScript from an external file. So now we have to tell the HTML file, hey, we're going to be using the source with the name of app.js. Okay, so we're going to say src equals to app.js. All right, now once we do this, we're gonna refresh this, and there you go, our code is working again. Okay, we are back, kids. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna make this work, guys. So currently right now, if you guys see, we have two buttons. Okay, and this is where you're gonna understand how JavaScript works. These two buttons here, they're supposed to do something, but because we have no JavaScript set up, there's no program behind the scenes, right? It's not doing anything. And now we're actually going to make it work. So to make it work, what we're going to do is we're going to come here and let's go back to our Visual Studio Code. All right. And we're going to click on app.js and we're going to delete all of this. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to get the elements inside of our page. All right. And we want to put them inside of variables. So we got three elements that we need. We need a background element, we have the plus button, and we have the minus button. Now, if we look at our HTML, we can see we have an ID called background, right? A div called background with the ID of background. And then basically we have two buttons, which is one with the ID of minus and another one with the ID of plus. So now what we want to do is we want to be able to target those elements. So we're going to come here and we're going to say document dot get element by ID, and then we're going to pass in a string, and is going to be the name of the element. So for us, the first one is going to be the background. Okay, now because we want to reuse this code, right, and we don't want to have to write this every single time that we want to target this element, what we're going to do is we're going to put this inside of a variable, and we're going to say var background el, right, just like that, equals to, and we're assigning that variable to be equal to that element of the background. Okay, so we're basically saying, hey, background el is equal to this element. All right, so then now what we're going to do is we're going to copy this, and we're going to do the same thing for the plus and minus buttons. So in here we're going to say minus, okay, name it minus, and then the element's ID is minus. This one we're going to call this plus, and then we are going to call the div with the element ID of plus. All right, now the beauty about JavaScript is that we basically use it to manipulate our web pages, right? You know, it could be something from a video, it could be an element for a video game, it could be a form, it could be anything that's inside of your browser. We can pretty much target it with this type of syntax, right? So we have this document and then get element.id. This is pretty much methods and functions that come with JavaScript, the programming language. All right, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna come here and declare a variable. I'm gonna say var total number equals to 0. Okay, now before we move forward, let me explain what exactly is it that we're doing. Every single time that we press this button, I want the background to grow. Okay, and it's gonna grow until it's 100% of the screen. All right, once it's 100% of the screen, it's gonna tell you, hey, that's the maximum that you could go. And if we try to go minus, it's going to shrink it down. And once we get to 0, if we try to go a little bit lower than 0, then what's gonna happen is gonna tell us, hey, we can't go past that. Okay, we can't go past 0. That's it. You know, 100 is the maximum and 0 is the minimum, right? Okay, so then now what we're gonna do is we're gonna come here and we're going to use a variable, right? And we're going to put in a function for this variable. So we're gonna say var change background, right? And in here, this is where we're going to actually change the background size. So here we're gonna say function, okay, and because we're gonna use this in multiple places, we're gonna use this in the plus and in the minus, we're putting it inside of a function, so we don't have to really repeat ourselves. So then now we're gonna come here and gonna say background element, right? So remember, is the div with the background ID, right? So we say background element that style dot width equals to total number plus, and then we're going to use a string to pass in the percentage sign. So now we're passing in a certain percentage. So when we press plus, we want this to go up by 10. So it's going to say 10%, 20%, 30%. Okay, and what that means is going 10% of the screen, 20% of the screen, 30% of the screen, etc., until it gets to 100. All right, now the next thing that we want to do is we want to declare a function that is going to be triggered every single time a button gets clicked. So we're gonna say var clicked button equals to function, and then we're gonna pass in as the argument the name, and then from here we're going to say console log, and we're gonna say passing a string clicked, and then in here we're gonna say like this plus name, and then say plus, and then we concatenating a string, and we're gonna say clicked button. Okay, now we're gonna save this, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna refresh this, and you're gonna see that if we click a button, nothing is happening. And the reason why nothing is happening, let me move this to the side right here. And the reason why nothing is happening is because we are not listening for that event. Okay, every time that you hover on top of something, every time that you click something, every time that you click a form, an event listener gets triggered. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to attach an event listener to these buttons here. Okay, and we want to listen to every single time that a click, or let's say a button gets clicked, we want to be able to trigger that function of clicked button. Okay, so down here we're gonna come here and we're going to actually say, I'm just gonna put in a comment. This is something that I haven't showed you guys yet. If you do // right, I can come here and write a comment, and what this means is that this line of code won't run on the browser. Okay, it won't be triggered when this program starts running. So now I can come here and say something like this: adding event listeners. Okay, so then now I'm going to use the variable that we created, right, which is holding this element of plus. So we're gonna say plus dot add event listener, and then in here we're going to say whenever there's a click, now we say pass in a comma, and then we pass in the actual function that we created, this click button. We're gonna say clicked button that bind null, and then we're going to actually come here and we're going to pass in the actual name. So for this one, I'm just gonna pass in, which one was this one, plus? Yeah, so plus. Okay, now the reason why I'm using this bind null plus is because I don't want this to actually be triggered. I don't want this function to be triggered. And you know what? I'm gonna show you guys what will happen if I come here and I say like this, delete this, and I pass in the function click button plus, right? If I save this, when I refresh the page, automatically it says click plus button. Okay, and the reason why that's happening is because we're basically triggering this function. Okay, we don't want this to be triggered. Okay, we only want to pass in the argument of plus as the name, but we want to pass that in when we actually click the button. Okay, so to do this, this is why we're using bind null plus. All right, now of course I'm teaching you guys the basics, right? But there's a lot of things in here that you will have to learn more about JavaScript, and you can definitely check out my website, CodingPhase.com, right? Where you pretty much can learn everything about JavaScript from beginning to being an expert, right? From zero to hero, from start to finish. Literally everything that you need, you could get it at CodingPhase.com, and you can get it literally for like $20, and sometimes I do crazy special like $10. Okay, so it's in the description, but just follow along because the idea is for you guys to understand how JavaScript works. Okay, so now we're saying plus dot add an event listener. So we're listening for this click event, and when this click event happens, we want to run this function. Okay, Okay, so we don't want to trigger it right away. We want to basically attach this function to this listener, and then once it gets clicked, we want to pass in this as the argument for that function. All right, but without triggering it. All right, so let's come here, copy this, and let's do the same thing but for minus. So we're gonna say minus, and then in here we're gonna change this to be minus. Save that, and then now let's refresh this, and then now if we click here, it says click plus button. As you can see, I'm clicking click plus button, everything is good. And if I click here, it's gonna say clicked minus button. All right, so as you can see, this is how JavaScript works. Right, this is how you add interactivity. It's a combination of HTML, CSS, right? HTML is the way how the page gets written. CSS is what gives it the styles, and then JavaScript is what makes it interactive. Okay, and then from there we add the logic of whatever we want to do, just like the program that we did earlier where we was checking to see if somebody was 21 years old or not. Okay, so now that we have this and we know that these things are working, we got the elements and we attach those clicked event listeners, right, to those buttons. Now what we want to do is we want to delete this, and we're going to start writing our logic. So then here we're going to say if the name, right, when we click on the button and we pass down the name, which is this is the argument, and then now this variable is equal to plus. If name is equal to plus, right, if it's equal to plus, then what we want to do is we want to change the background. Okay, so we're gonna say like this: total number plus equals to 10. Okay, what that means is we're adding 10 to whatever this number is. Okay, so at first it's 0 and we're adding 10 to it, and then we are assigning the variable again with this new number. Okay, with whatever is equal to it, right? So if it's 0, it's equal to 10. So then now we're assigning the total number to be equal to 10. If it's 10 and then we're assigning another 10 on top of it, then now it becomes 20. You get what I'm saying? Okay, so then now the next thing that we want to do is we're going to come here and we're going to say change background. We're going to run that function so it can actually show it to us in the view and we can see something happening. Okay, so let's refresh this, and if I click here, as you can see, the side of the page is getting bigger. Okay, if I click again, it starts getting bigger. Okay, so I just clicked it a million times. All right, so it definitely got pretty big, but we don't want this to go any bigger than 100%. So what we want to do is we want to come here and put in another if statement. So inside of this, once we check like, hey, the button that just got clicked is the plus button, then what we want to do is we want to also say over here and check if, right, if total number, okay, is less than 90. Okay, if total number is less than 90, then we want to run this code. Okay, and we're going to move this to be inside of here. Else we're going to do an alert, and we're going to say alert, and we're going to pass in a string and say sorry, can't go higher. Okay, so what we're doing here is, first of all, we have this click button that is attached to the event of the click button, right? So once we click that button, it triggers this click button. Then from here, it comes here and it checks the name of that button, says, oh, it's the plus button. Cool. Then from there, it says, oh, let's also check if the total number is less than or equal to 90, then we're going to add the number to the total number. So what this is going to do is that it's going to go from 0 and then it's going to turn to 10. But once it gets to 90, is going to add another 10, but it won't be able to go any higher than that. Okay, and I'm gonna show you right now. So I'm gonna say like this, and I'm gonna console log here. Let's say the total number. So let's save this and let's refresh this. Okay, so then now let's click here. As you can see, it's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. So because we said, hey, you can still add another 10 if it's less than 90 or equal to 90. Okay, so once it got to 90, now it allows us to add another 10 one more time. Okay, so we add this, and the moment we click here one more time from 100 to try to add 110, it's gonna say sorry, can't go higher. All right, so now we want to do the same thing that we did here, but now we want to do it going the opposite way. All right, so the idea is that at first it's gonna be at 0. Okay, and if it's less than 10, it shouldn't allow me to press the minus button. Okay, so for example, if I'm at 0 and the number that starts with is 0, okay, I shouldn't be able to press the minus button. It should give me an error and say, hey, you can't go any lower than this. Okay, but if I'm at number 10, I can also press minus and it will take me back to 0. So to do this, what we're gonna do is we're gonna come here and we're gonna do the same thing that we did here, but opposite way. All right, so we're gonna copy this, okay, and then we're going to check if the button that was pressed is the minus button. Okay, if it's the minus button, then it's going to run the code. So it's gonna say if it's greater than or equal to 10, okay, if it's greater than or equal to 10, it allows us to minus the number by 10. Okay, anything less is going to give us an error, and we're gonna say sorry, can go lower. Okay, save that, and then now let's try this. So if I click here, it says sorry, it's already at 0, so it can't go lower than 0. Okay, now if I'm at 10, okay, and I click on minus, it's gonna allow me to go to 0, but if I try to go any lower, it's gonna give me that error. Okay, so the idea is that you can go all the way to 100. Anything higher is gonna give you an error, and anything lower is going to also give you an error. As you can see, the maximum number that we can get is 100, and the lowest that we can get is 0. Okay, so as you guys can see, we just pretty much did a very basic program with JavaScript, and we were able to manipulate the DOM, change the CSS, and create this very simple application, right? Just by creating a few lines of code. All right, and we could probably, simplify this even more for sure, but I wanted to explain it like this for you guys that are beginners, because I know it can be a little bit difficult to wrap your mind around this. Okay, so let me just review this one more time so you guys can understand. Okay, so we have our HTML file. Okay, we have our CSS file. This is where our styles are coming from. Okay, from there we have a div with ID of background. We have a container, which is the box. Okay, and then from there, inside of that box, we have a button that says minus and a button that says plus, and both of them are using IDs. Okay, we are connecting to that app.js file by using a script tag, and we're saying the source is app.js. So from there, once this page loads up and we go to open file, okay, we go to index.html, automatically Google Chrome is reading the file and it pulls up that app.js. Okay, and if we click here, let's go to the network, refresh, you see we got the index.html, styles.css, and it's also loading up the app.js. Okay, inside of our app.js, we have our program. Okay, the first thing that we did was we came in, and I'm going to put in comments just for you guys to understand the process. We came in and we declared variables for the elements. Okay. Now, after that, we came in and we declared a function to change the background width. Okay. Then we came here and we declared a function to be triggered when a button is clicked. Okay. And changes the width of the background. Okay. And then down here, adding event listeners, or let's say adding clicked event listeners to all buttons. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so that's what we did. All right, we came in, we got the variables in here, which is equal to each element that we're going to be manipulating or listening for an event. Okay, we changed the background with this function. Inside of here, we created a function that pretty much gets triggered every single time a button gets triggered. Okay, we checked if the total number is less than 90, or let's say less than 90 or equal to 90. We can always add another 10, okay, to basically maximize it to 100. Else we come in and we give it an alert and tell the user, hey, sorry, you can't go higher. And we did the same thing for the minus, but we did it the opposite way. We just basically said, hey, we can always click this button so long as is greater than 10 or equal to 10. Okay, so there you go. That's pretty much it. All right, so I hope this is helpful for you guys that are thinking about learning about JavaScript. Right, my advice is go check out my website, CodingPhase.com. As you guys can see, I try to break this down, not like trying to give it to you guys in a way where it's going to be difficult for you guys to understand, because this is the thing. Most people that teach online, they forget that the people that are learning online a lot of times are not the guys who are going to college for computer science, are not the guys that are coming in, you know, with a technical degree, or they're, you know, a hacker on their off time. Like, most people that are taking these courses, they're just beginners, you know, people that are just starting. Okay, and sometimes you need courses like this that somebody might come in and say, man, so, oh my god, this guy didn't even, you know, give us anything technical. And it's like, you really need something that is simple for you to understand. You can learn more technical things on your own as you continue to learn and you continue to go on your journey. But when you're just learning and you're at the beginning stages, you need to learn like this with simple examples that make sense. So if this makes sense, guys, definitely go to my website, CodingPhase.com. Literally with $20 a month, you could pretty much get started. And you know what? I'm going to give you guys a crazy discount where you can start very cheap right there on the description and on my comment section. Okay, so if you guys like this, make sure you subscribe, make sure you like this video, and leave me a comment. Let me know, do you guys want this type of videos where I just break it down for you guys? Super simple, you know, it's like coding for dummies. You know, I'm not trying to call you guys dummies, but you know, just make it like really simple. You know, you ever heard of KISS? You know, keep it simple, stupid, right? Some people, they forget this, okay? And that's why sometimes people don't get to learn how to code, because, you know, people want to teach it to you in a difficult way, all right? So that's what I do here, CodingPhase.com, guys. Go visit it, all right? If you guys like this, let me know, and you guys want me to teach you guys another programming language, something simple, let me know, okay? I'll see you guys later. It's your boy Joe, back at it again, CodingPhase.com.